styles, everyday finds, one place. Welcome to Shack Shop, your go-to online store for women's fashion and must-have essentials. From trendy outfits to lifestyle items you didn't know you needed, it's all here. Easy shopping, great prices, new arrivals dropping often. Shop smarter. Shop Shack Shop. Visit us online today.
Trump signals breakthrough on Greenland talks after NATO meeting as tariffs are suspended. Former president says framework for Arctic agreement reached, claims tariff delay tied to progress. Former President Donald Trump has once again reignited global debate over Greenland, asserting that discussions with NATO leadership have resulted in what he describes as a preliminary framework for a future agreement involving the Arctic region, including the strategically vital island territory. According to Trump, the development was significant enough for him to suspend tariffs that had been scheduled to take effect on February 1st, framing the move as a goodwill gesture tied directly to diplomatic progress. In a post shared on his Truth Social platform, Trump characterized his recent meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte as very productive, suggesting that it laid the groundwork for broader cooperation in the Arctic, an area of growing geopolitical and military importance. Based upon a very productive meeting that I have had with the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, we have formed the framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland, and in fact the entire Arctic region, Trump wrote. He added that, should negotiations be completed successfully, the outcome would be a great one for the United States of America and all NATO nations. Tariffs put on hold as talks continue. Trump stated that the understanding reached during discussions prompted him to pause the implementation of tariffs that had been scheduled for early February. While he did not provide details on the scope or duration of the suspension, he emphasized that the decision was directly tied to ongoing negotiations. Based upon this understanding, I will not be imposing the tariffs that were scheduled to go into effect on February 1st. The announcement immediately drew attention from trade analysts and foreign policy observers, many of whom noted that tariffs have frequently been used by Trump as both an economic and diplomatic lever. By linking the tariff delay to Arctic and Greenland discussions, Trump appeared to signal that trade pressure could remain an option should talks fail to progress to his satisfaction. Greenland once again at the center of global attention. Trump's renewed focus on Greenland revives a controversial issue that dates back to his first term in office, when he openly floated the idea of the United States acquiring the massive Arctic island. At the time, the proposal was swiftly rejected by both Denmark, which maintains sovereignty over Greenland, and Greenland's own leadership. Despite that rejection, Trump has continued to frame Greenland as a strategic asset essential to U.S. national security, particularly as global competition in the Arctic intensifies due to melting ice, new shipping routes, and access to untapped natural resources. In recent weeks, demonstrations have taken place in Nuuk, Greenland's capital, with protesters holding signs reading, "Greenland is for Greenlanders." The demonstrations underscore local opposition to any suggestion that Greenland's future could be negotiated without the consent of its people. NATO, the Arctic, and strategic competition. The Arctic region has increasingly become a focal point for NATO, Russia, China, and other global powers. As ice recedes, the region is opening up to expanded military access, shipping lanes, and energy exploration. Trump's reference to a broader Arctic framework suggests that discussions may go beyond Greenland itself and touch on NATO military posture in the high north, missile defense and early warning systems, freedom of navigation in Arctic waters, energy security, and critical mineral access. Trump also hinted at talks related to the so-called Golden Dome, a missile defense concept he has previously promoted. According to Trump, discussions are underway regarding how such a system could relate to Greenland's geographic position. Additional discussions are being held concerning the Golden Dome as it pertains to Greenland, he wrote. High-level negotiating team named. Trump said future negotiations will be handled by a group of senior officials, including Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. He noted that the group would report directly to me, underscoring his intent to personally oversee the process. The announcement signals that Trump views the issue as both a diplomatic and strategic priority, rather than a symbolic or rhetorical exercise. Reaction and skepticism. While Trump's statement was definitive in tone, it left many unanswered questions. Neither NATO nor Danish officials have publicly confirmed the existence of a formal framework agreement related to Greenland ownership or transfer. Analysts point out that NATO operates by consensus and does not have authority to negotiate territorial transfers involving sovereign nations or autonomous regions. Greenland, while part of the Kingdom of Denmark, maintains significant self-governing powers, including control over domestic affairs. Critics argue that Trump's language may be aspirational rather than descriptive, framing preliminary conversations as concrete progress. Supporters, however, say the announcement reflects Trump's negotiating style, using bold statements to create leverage and momentum. The domestic political dimension. Trump's comments also arrive at a time when Arctic security is gaining bipartisan attention in Washington.
Lawmakers from both parties have expressed concern about Russia's expanded military footprint in the Arctic and China's self-described status as a near-Arctic state. By positioning himself as actively negotiating Arctic strategy with NATO, Trump may be seeking to reinforce his image as a leader willing to challenge traditional diplomatic boundaries in the name of national security. His reference to tariffs, and willing to pause them, also fits into a broader narrative of economic nationalism blended with transactional diplomacy. What comes next? At this stage, the future of the alleged framework remains uncertain. Key questions include whether NATO officials will publicly confirm Trump's characterization, whether Denmark or Greenland's government will respond directly, whether tariff threats will re-emerge if talks stall, how any Arctic agreement would be structured within existing international law. Trump has made clear that negotiations are ongoing and that further announcements may follow as discussions progress.